The $1 million was never supposed to disappear. It was supposed to reveal who could be trusted. At 6:15 on a cold Monday morning, Lena Brooks entered the West Library of Whitmore House with a dust cloth, a brass key, and the quiet discipline that had carried her through 3 difficult years on the estate. She was 29, observant, and almost invisible to the wealthy guests who passed her in the halls without learning her name. That morning, however, someone had made certain she would see everything. The wall safe stood open behind a framed landscape. Inside rested a black leather case packed with neat stacks of $100 bills. A white envelope lay on top, and Lena Brooks had been typed across the front. Lena stopped 6 feet from the safe. She did not touch the money. She did not touch the envelope. Instead, she looked toward the smoke detector above the bookcase and noticed the tiny red light of a camera that had not been there the previous week. In the security room downstairs, Adrian Whitmore watched her on a silent monitor. At 39, Adrian had built a reputation as a cold, calculating Mafia boss who could read a lie before the speaker finished telling it. His tailored charcoal suit was perfect, but the dark circles beneath his gray eyes revealed 3 sleepless nights. Confidential contracts had vanished from his private office, and his advisor, Raymond Cross, had insisted that someone on the household staff was responsible. Raymond had offered one name first, Lena Brooks. Adrian had rejected the accusation, then created the test anyway. In the library, Lena slowly backed toward the door. Before leaving, she placed her cleaning cart across the entrance so no one could enter unnoticed. She found house manager Margaret Ellis in the breakfast room and asked her to contact Adrian immediately. 10 minutes later, Adrian arrived with Raymond at his side. Raymond wore a navy suit and a satisfied smile that vanished when he saw the untouched case. Lena stood beside the fireplace, her hands folded at her waist. "There is money in the open safe," she said. "There is also an envelope with my name on it, and a camera pointed directly at both." Adrian studied her face. "You did not open the envelope?" "No, why not?" "Because whatever is inside was placed there to make me choose before I understood the question." Raymond gave a dismissive laugh. Lena turned toward him. "And because honest people do not need to prove themselves by walking into someone else's trap." The room fell silent. Adrian had expected fear, temptation, perhaps confusion. He had not expected her to name the truth so clearly. Then Margaret stepped forward with an alarmed expression and reported that the library camera had stopped recording for exactly 90 seconds before Lena entered. Someone had entered the room, altered the system, and left without appearing on any active screen. Adrian looked at the $1 million, then at Raymond. For the first time that morning, he realized the test might not expose a thief. It might expose the man who designed the accusation. Adrian ordered the library sealed, not with guards or threats, but with a written access log and 2 independent witnesses from the estate office. Lena remained near the doorway while Margaret photographed the open safe, the case, and the envelope. Raymond objected immediately. He argued that every minute of delay gave the guilty person time to destroy evidence. Yet his urgency only made Adrian more attentive. The missing 90 seconds bothered him. The camera system was protected by a rotating password known to Adrian, Margaret, and Raymond. Lena had no access to it. When Adrian asked Raymond where he had been before dawn, Raymond answered too quickly. He claimed he had arrived at 7, although Lena had seen his silver sedan beside the service entrance at 5:45. She said nothing at first. She understood that a careless accusation could be used against her as easily as the money could. Adrian asked Margaret to open the envelope with gloves. Inside was a single card. "Take what you deserve." Beneath the card lay a photocopy of Lena's employment file, including her salary, her address, and a handwritten calculation showing how many years she would need to earn $1 million. The cruelty of the page changed the room. This was no ordinary loyalty test. Someone wanted Lena to feel watched, measured, and insulted. Adrian's expression hardened as he realized the calculation had been written on stationery from Raymond's private office. Raymond claimed anyone could have taken it. Lena finally spoke. She explained that his car had been present before sunrise and that the left rear brake light was still flickering when she carried linens through the courtyard. Raymond accused her of inventing details. Adrian did not defend her with words. He called the gatehouse and requested the automatic license scan. The record confirmed that Raymond had entered at 5:38. His face lost color, but he recovered quickly and said he had forgotten an early meeting. Adrian then asked why he had used the service entrance instead of the main drive. Raymond had no convincing answer. The $1 million remained untouched while the estate's internal accountant counted every bundle and recorded the serial numbers. Lena noticed that one bundle was slightly shorter than the others. She asked the accountant to weigh it. $9,000 was missing. Raymond smiled again, as though the discovery finally proved theft. Lena looked at the safe and then at the cleaning cart she had used the previous Friday. A memory returned. Raymond had stopped her in the East Hall and asked whether the library carpets would be cleaned Monday morning. At the time, the question had seemed harmless. Now it sounded like preparation. Adrian dismissed the household staff for the day with full pay and asked Lena to stay. She refused to be questioned alone and requested Margaret's presence. Adrian agreed. Seated across from him in the breakfast room, Lena told him the part he had not expected to hear. "You placed $1 million in my path because a powerful man said my honesty was doubtful. Even if I prove him wrong, your test has already told me what you believed was possible." Adrian tried to explain that he suspected everyone. Lena met his gaze without anger. Suspicion applied equally can still become injustice when only one person is made into the example. Lena returned to her small staff apartment before noon and placed her uniforms into a suitcase. She had survived disrespect before, but she had never agreed to make it permanent. Her plan was simple: collect her final wages, leave Whitmore House, and restart the bookkeeping service she had abandoned when her mother needed financial support. Before she could close the suitcase, Margaret arrived carrying a folder recovered from the library printer. The machine had stored a queue of recent documents, including the employment file placed in the envelope. The file had been printed from Raymond's office account at 5:42 that morning. It was strong evidence, but not complete proof. Someone could have used his computer, and Raymond would certainly say so. Margaret also showed Lena a second document, a transfer request for $1 million from Adrian's private reserve to a consulting company called Northline Strategy. The request had been prepared 3 days earlier, but never authorized. Lena recognized the company name. It appeared on monthly invoices she had found in waste paper baskets while cleaning the estate office. Each invoice was just below the amount that required a second executive signature. She had assumed the papers were drafts. Now she understood that someone had been dividing large payments into smaller pieces to avoid review. Lena did not want to become part of Adrian's internal conflict. Yet the household employees had retirement accounts managed through the same office. If the invoices were false, their savings might also be at risk. She returned to the breakfast room on one condition: she would help Margaret organize documents for 48 hours, and an outside forensic accountant would verify every conclusion. Adrian agreed. He also agreed that Raymond would be suspended from the estate's financial systems during the review. Raymond reacted with polished outrage, warning Adrian that trusting a maid over a long-time advisor would humiliate the family. Lena answered before Adrian could. "This is not about trusting my title or distrusting yours. It is about checking records." The forensic accountant, Dana Price, arrived from Boston that afternoon. Dana created read-only copies of the ledgers and asked Lena to explain where she had seen Northline's invoices. Lena guided her through the recycling logs, vendor folders, and household purchasing records. By evening, they found 12 payments totaling $987,000. Each had been approved by Raymond and coded as security consulting. No reports, contracts, or work products existed. The missing $9,000 from the library case brought the total to $996,000. $4,000 remained unexplained. Adrian watched the figures assemble into a pattern that felt less like theft than a message. The amount had been engineered to approach exactly $1 million. Someone wanted the case, the false invoices, and Lena's employment file to form a single story. Just before midnight, Dana found the final $4,000 payment in a staff emergency fund. The recipient account belonged to a shell company registered by Raymond's brother. The full million had not been offered to Lena. It had been stolen over 18 months, then staged in the library so she could be blamed for its final disappearance. Adrian looked toward Lena, expecting relief. Instead, she closed the ledger and said, "Now you know who betrayed you. You still have not answered why you were willing to betray me first." The next morning, Adrian called a meeting in the formal dining room. Around the long walnut table sat Dana, Margaret, the estate attorney, two representatives from the employee's retirement plan, and Raymond, who had arrived with his own lawyer. Lena took the chair closest to the door. She had agreed to explain the records, not to become Adrian's symbol of innocence. Raymond began by attacking her credibility. He described her as a household employee with no formal authority and suggested that her knowledge of discarded invoices proved she had been searching private documents. Lena answered calmly that she had found them while performing assigned cleaning duties and had preserved nothing until Margaret requested her help. Dana confirmed every payment through independent bank records. The estate attorney confirmed that Lena had no login credentials, no signing authority, and no access to the accounts receiving the money. Raymond then introduced his final defense. He claimed Adrian had ordered the payments in cash to protect confidential operations and that Lena's accusation was a convenient attempt to earn a reward. Adrian could have silenced the claim by revealing private family business, but he chose a different path. He authorized Dana to open the reserve ledgers to the employee representatives and to report any unlawful activity to the appropriate authorities. The decision stunned Raymond. For years, secrecy had protected every powerful person at Whitmore House. Adrian was now choosing transparency, even though it might cost him control of the organization. Lena watched him carefully. One honest decision did not erase the test, but it changed the direction of the room. Dana presented the camera access records. Raymond's administrator code had disabled the library feed at 5:39 and restored it at 5:41. His lawyer argued that the code could have been copied. Margaret then produced the gatehouse video, which showed Raymond entering the service corridor carrying the black leather case. No confrontation followed. No one raised a voice. The evidence simply removed every place he could hide. Raymond's attorney requested a private recess. When they returned, Raymond resigned from all Whitmore companies and agreed to preserve his devices and financial records for investigators. He still denied personal guilt, but his certainty had disappeared. Adrian should have felt victorious. Instead, the employee representatives asked why $1 million in cash had been used to test a worker without written cause, legal oversight, or basic dignity. Margaret admitted that several staff members had already submitted resignations. They no longer believed the estate was a safe workplace. Adrian turned toward Lena. "I was wrong," he said. "Not only about you. I was wrong to believe fear could reveal loyalty." Lena accepted the statement without softening it. "An apology tells me you understand the words. What you do next will tell everyone whether you understand the harm." She stood, placed her brass key on the table, and confirmed that she was resigning. Adrian offered her the $1 million as compensation. Lena looked at the case, then back at him. "You still think money is the answer to a question money created?" She walked out of the dining room, leaving Adrian surrounded by proof that he had found the thief and lost the person he should never have doubted. By Friday, Whitmore House had become quieter than Lena had ever known it. 6 employees resigned, 3 requested transfers, and the remaining staff demanded written workplace protections. Adrian approved every request. He hired an independent labor attorney, removed hidden cameras from non-secure staff areas, and suspended all loyalty tests, personal surveillance, and cash handling outside documented business procedures. None of those decisions brought Lena back. She moved into a modest apartment 12 miles away and reopened Brooks Ledger Services from a rented office above a neighborhood bakery. Her first clients were small contractors, family restaurants, and 2 former Whitmore employees who needed help reviewing their retirement statements. Within days, Lena discovered that Raymond's scheme had reached beyond the missing $1 million. Management fees had been inflated, emergency withdrawals had been disguised, and dozens of workers had lost small amounts that were easy to overlook individually. Together, the losses were substantial. Lena sent the evidence to Dana, who confirmed the pattern and notified the retirement plan representatives. Adrian learned about the discovery through his attorney. He wanted to call Lena, but Margaret advised him not to turn her professional work into another demand on her time. Instead, he signed an agreement restoring every affected account from his personal assets, including interest. The total cost exceeded $3 million. He also accepted that repayment did not purchase forgiveness. Meanwhile, Raymond released a statement portraying himself as a loyal advisor sacrificed to protect Adrian's reputation. Reporters gathered outside the estate gates. Several articles focused on the $1 million test and questioned whether Adrian's companies operated through intimidation rather than lawful governance. Business partners postponed contracts. The board scheduled an emergency review. Adrian's world had always been held together by certainty, silence, and the assumption that people would remain close if the price was high enough. Now the same $1 million that had been intended to measure Lena's character was measuring his. Dana asked Lena to appear before the board as an independent witness. Lena agreed only after receiving written assurance that she would be paid a standard professional fee and that her testimony would not be edited into a public relations campaign. At the hearing, she described Raymond's invoices, the staged case, and the altered camera feed. She also described Adrian's decision to test her without evidence. One board member asked whether she believed Adrian had participated in the theft. Lena answered carefully. The records do not show that he took the money. They show that he created the conditions that allowed one dishonest advisor to control information and one innocent employee to become an easy target. Adrian heard the sentence from the opposite end of the table. It was fair, precise, and more painful than any insult. The board placed him on temporary leave while outside investigators reviewed every company. As he left the building through a side entrance, he saw Lena speaking with Dana beneath the gray afternoon sky. He did not approach her. For the first time, Adrian understood that respecting her meant accepting a distance he could not pay to close. The investigation lasted 7 weeks. During that time, Adrian was prohibited from approving contracts, accessing reserve accounts, or directing senior staff. He spent his mornings in a nearly empty home office answering questions from auditors and his afternoons reading policies he had once dismissed as unnecessary. Every page revealed the same failure. He had built an organization around personal loyalty instead of accountable systems. Raymond had exploited that weakness with patience, flattering Adrian while isolating anyone who asked for documentation. The missing million was not an isolated crime. It was the predictable result of a culture Adrian had created. Lena's business grew steadily. Her careful work and refusal to exaggerate made clients trust her. She hired one former payroll clerk from Whitmore Logistics and offered transparent salaries, written responsibilities, and access to every policy affecting employees. She did not speak publicly about Adrian beyond her formal testimony. When reporters pressed her for emotional details, she returned to the records. "This is about financial accountability and workplace dignity," she said. "It is not entertainment." Her discipline changed the public conversation. The story became less about a sensational briefcase and more about the ordinary workers whose savings had been treated as invisible. Near the end of the investigation, Dana discovered that Raymond had prepared a second plan. If Lena took even one bundle from the case, he intended to report the money missing, produce the manipulated camera gap, and direct investigators toward her apartment. If she refused, he planned to claim the test proved nothing and encourage Adrian to dismiss her anyway. Lena had never been the suspect. She had been the cover story. Adrian read Dana's report twice, then requested a meeting with Lena through her attorney. He did not ask her to return to the estate. He asked whether Brooks Ledger Services would conduct an independent review of a new employee restitution fund. Lena considered the proposal for 3 days. She accepted with strict terms. All communication would be professional. Every finding would go directly to employee representatives, and Adrian would have no authority to change her report. He signed without negotiation. Their first meeting took place in Lena's office above the bakery. Adrian arrived alone, 10 minutes early, carrying no gifts. The office was smaller than his library, but its shelves were organized. Its policies were posted clearly, and every person who entered was greeted by name. Lena reviewed the contract, then looked at him across a plain oak desk. "You lost control of your companies because you trusted one man too much and everyone else too little." Adrian nodded. "I know. Knowing is not repair. I know that too." She studied him for a moment. "Then let the work be the apology." Over the following month, they reviewed restitution claims together. Their conversations were restrained but honest. Adrian never asked for personal forgiveness. Lena never offered easy comfort. Yet respect began to form in the space where power had once demanded obedience. It was not romance. Not yet. It was something more necessary. Proof that two people could meet again without pretending the past had disappeared. The final board hearing was held on a bright December morning in downtown Boston. Outside, holiday lights crossed the streets. But inside the conference room, the mood remained severe. Investigators had traced the stolen funds through Northline Strategy and 3 related shell companies. Raymond had agreed to return assets and cooperate with the civil case, while criminal questions remained with federal authorities. Adrian was not accused of taking the money, yet the governance report held him responsible for reckless oversight, unauthorized surveillance, and a workplace culture built on fear. The board offered him a choice. He could fight to retain control, forcing months of litigation and risking the collapse of the legitimate businesses that employed more than 800 people. Or he could surrender his controlling interest, step down as chief executive, and allow a restructured board to protect the companies and workers. A year earlier, Adrian would have fought simply because yielding felt like weakness. Now he asked only one question. Will the employee retirement accounts and restitution agreements remain fully funded? When the board said yes, he signed. By noon, Adrian Whitmore was no longer the most powerful man in the organization carrying his family name. Reporters called it a bitter defeat. Some former associates called it humiliation. Adrian called it the first decision he had made without asking what it would preserve for him. Lena attended as the independent monitor of the restitution fund. She watched him sign each page and understood the cost. He had lost control of the estate's operating company, his executive title, and most of the influence that had defined him. Yet she also understood that consequences were not cruelty. They were the structure that made change believable. After the hearing, Adrian found her in the quiet lobby. "The fund is protected," he said. "I reviewed the final language." Lena replied, "It is stronger than the original agreement." He gave a small nod. "Your work made that possible. The workers made it necessary." There was no dramatic embrace, no sudden declaration that erased the distance between them. Adrian asked whether she would continue overseeing the fund. Lena said she would, but only as long as the new board remained transparent. He accepted the condition. Before they parted, he handed her a sealed document. It was not a check. It was the deed transferring an unused Whitmore Training Center to a new nonprofit governed by employees, local educators, and community representatives. Lena's name was listed as a proposed board member, not an owner. She could accept or refuse without affecting the transfer. "This is not another test," Adrian said. "There are no hidden conditions." Lena read the first page, then looked at him. "You finally learned to offer information before asking for trust." For the first time in months, Adrian almost smiled. "I had an exacting teacher." Lena did not return the smile immediately, but her expression softened. The $1 million trap had cost Adrian his empire. What remained was smaller, uncertain, and honest enough to begin again. Winter settled over Whitmore House, and Adrian chose not to hide inside it. He sold the private club where Raymond had cultivated secret agreements, closed 2 shell subsidiaries, and converted the estates and used East Wing into temporary offices for the employee nonprofit. He retained a modest residence on the property, but opened the gardens and meeting rooms for job training programs twice each week. The changes did not make everyone admire him. Some people believed they were overdue. Others believed they were attempts to repair his image. Adrian stopped trying to control either opinion. He attended governance classes, answered every audit request, and allowed the results to remain public. Lena joined the nonprofit board after negotiating stronger voting rights for employees and community members. She made it clear that her participation did not represent personal reconciliation. Adrian respected the boundary. Their professional meetings became easier, though never careless. He learned that Lena preferred plain coffee, arrived 15 minutes early, and disliked compliments that were not connected to specific work. She learned that Adrian remembered every employee's family situation, even when he had failed to understand their fear of him. The contradiction did not excuse him, but it made him human rather than symbolic. In February, the final restitution payments reached the affected accounts. Brooks Ledger Services verified each deposit. Margaret, now Director of Workplace Standards, organized a meeting where employees could question the new board without supervisors present. Adrian attended only after the employees voted to permit it. He sat in the back row and listened as people described years of uncertainty. He did not interrupt to defend himself. When his turn came, he apologized without mentioning Raymond, pressure, or family tradition. "I treated loyalty as something I could demand and measure," he said. That belief harmed people who had already earned my respect through their work. I cannot change what happened. I can accept limits that prevent me from repeating it. The room did not transform into instant forgiveness. A few employees nodded. Others remained silent. Lena considered that an honest outcome. Trust returned in inches, not miles. After the meeting, she found Adrian alone in the library where the test had begun. The wall safe was closed, and the hidden camera had been removed. On the table lay the empty black case, now tagged as evidence released from the civil investigation. Adrian planned to donate it to the training program as part of a lesson on internal controls. Lena traced the edge of the case without opening it. "Do you know what the worst part of your test was?" she asked. Adrian answered quietly, "That I doubted you." "No. The worst part was that you believed my honesty belonged to you to evaluate." He absorbed the distinction. "You are right." Lena looked around the room. "And the best part?" He waited. "You finally learned that trust is not ownership." She turned toward the door, then paused. "The bakery downstairs from my office closes at 6. I will be there at 5:30 tomorrow. Not for business." Adrian understood the invitation for what it was: small, voluntary, and free of obligation. "I will be there," he said. This time, neither of them mistook possibility for forgiveness. 1 year after the black case appeared in the library, the former Whitmore Training Center opened as the Brooks Community Finance Institute. Lena had resisted having her name placed on the building, but the employee board voted unanimously after she created free bookkeeping courses, retirement workshops, and paid apprenticeships for young adults. Adrian attended the opening without a security entourage or a reserved seat. He stood among former warehouse workers, neighborhood business owners, and families who had once known Whitmore companies only as distant institutions. The $1 million recovered from Raymond's network had been returned through restitution and asset sales. An additional fund, created from Adrian's surrendered shares, guaranteed that no employee would lose retirement savings because of the old scheme. Brooks Ledger Services now occupied the second floor of the institute and employed 12 people. Lena remained independent, direct, and impossible to impress with wealth. Adrian worked as a non-controlling advisor to a regional logistics cooperative, where every major decision required board review. The arrangement paid less than his former role and gave him far less authority. He considered both facts healthy. Their relationship had grown slowly through ordinary choices: coffee after meetings, Sunday walks through public gardens, conversations in which Adrian listened without preparing a defense. Lena never forgot the test, and Adrian never asked her to. Memory became a boundary that protected the truth rather than a weapon that punished the future. During the opening ceremony, Margaret presented Lena with a small glass display case. Inside was a single $100 bill from the original library money, legally released after the investigation and purchased by the nonprofit at face value. A plaque beneath it read, "Integrity cannot be bought, but systems can be built to protect it." Lena laughed softly at the dramatic wording, then admitted it was accurate. Adrian approached after the crowd moved toward the classrooms. "There was a time when I thought $1 million could tell me everything about a person," he said. Lena looked through the glass at the bill. "It told everyone something about you. That was the bitter ending I deserved. It was an ending for the man you were." She turned toward him. "What happens next depends on the man you keep choosing to become." Adrian did not offer a promise larger than he could prove. He simply asked whether she would join him for dinner after the final workshop. Lena said yes. Across the lobby, students opened new ledgers while retired employees met with advisors who treated every question seriously. The old Whitmore name still appeared on legal documents, but it no longer controlled the room. Power had been replaced by process, secrecy by records, and fear by the right to ask questions. Adrian had lost an empire because he tried to test a woman whose character had never required his approval. In losing it, he gained the only future that money could not purchase. Lena walked beside him toward the classroom doors, not as his employee, not as his reward, and not as proof of his redemption, but as an equal who had chosen, freely and carefully, to see what he would do with a second chance.